Today was a day with electric fruit. To start off with, I finally got a chance to see a demo unit of the iPhone X. It turns out it was hidden in another part of the local Best Buy away from the rest of the Apple display, over on the far side of where the cell phones are. But I finally managed to get a chance to play with it, and I came away with three simple words. I want one. Now, I want to preface this with the fact that I don't see myself getting the actual iPhone X. But if rumors are to be believed, the iPhone X's all-screen, no-bezel design will be migrating to other models with a lower price point, and that's why I was so interested in this. So I spent an hour with it, and the lack of a home button was not a problem with VoiceOver whatsoever. So if you swipe from the bottom of the screen about a quarter of the way up, you feel one vibration and you hear a mid-range tone. That would be your home button. And if you leave your finger there in that position after you hear that tone and feel that first vibration, VoiceOver will literally tell you, lift for home. If you continue up to halfway from the bottom of the screen, you'll feel two vibrations and hear a higher pitched tone. And if you wait for a moment, VoiceOver will tell you, lift for app switcher. You can also move back down to below where you feel the home button single vibration, and you'll feel two vibrations and a low tone, and that would be your cancel. So let's say, for instance, you swiped up accidentally, and you find yourself on the home gesture. You can just slide back down to where you feel two vibrations, hear a low tone, and if you need confirmation, you just wait for a moment, and VoiceOver will say, lift to cancel, and you'll be right back in where you left off. Same with the notifications and the control center. Now, for sighted users, the home and app switcher gestures are actually quite similar, minus the vibrations involved. For sighted users, though, getting into the app and notifications the control center and notifications are two different deals depending on which side of the screen you pull down from. Now, for VoiceOver users, it's a whole other kettle of fish, because basically you turn your home and your app switcher gestures, you take those and turn them upside down. And what do I mean by that? Basically, what will happen is you swipe halfway down the screen from either corner, quarter of the way down the screen, from either corner. It doesn't have to be specifically the right or the left to trigger either of these, okay? That's what's so beautiful about this. But it does have to be one of the corners. Anything underneath the earpiece and you won't trigger this. So I would recommend getting a case where you can physically feel the notch. Or maybe get a screen protector where you can feel the notch. So quarter way down from the top, again, either side of either corner, left or right top corner, and you will listen and you will feel for a single vibration and medium tone. Now, when you swiped up from the bottom, that confirmation was for the home button. In this case, if you're going from the top down, one vibration will get you to the control center. And again, if you leave your finger there, VoiceOver will actually say lift for control center. Now, if you continue down the screen to the halfway point and feel the two vibrations and a high tone, now again, if you go from the bottom to the halfway point, two vibrations, that gets you to your app switcher. Top of the screen to the halfway point and two vibrations, that gets you to your notifications. Okay? And once you adapt to it, I have to say it's incredibly easy. And what's beautiful about it is you don't have to worry about which corner you're lifting from for the top two for the notification and control center. And for me, that's awesome because I'm a southpaw. And if I can do something with my left hand without having it having to be awkward, I'm going to go for that every time. And like I mentioned before, VoiceOver will literally tell you, lift for wherever you're located, okay? And again, bottom up. Quarter is home, half is app switcher. Top corner, down. Quarter of the way with the single vibration is the control center, and halfway down from the top is your notifications. VoiceOver even was able to describe the animojis to me and actually tell me when I was in the camera's view. That's important because apparently in order for me to be in the camera's view, I have to be at a distance where I cannot clearly see the screen, and it has to do with Apple's styling and fonts and what have you. So I like the fact that it tells me when I'm actually in view. The triple-click home that you've noticed, that you've seen on the older devices, which incidentally, if you cannot see, I've got a picture with the iPhone 10 in the middle, the 8 on the left, and the 8 Plus on the right. So you can see stylistically the difference. The triple-click home gesture, that's been replaced by the side button, okay? If you can see, you'll probably notice the power side button on the right-hand side of the iPhone 10 is a bit longer than it is on this 8 and 8 Plus. I like that. It's a lot easier to feel, gives me, I think, more leverage to work with. But also it tells me that that the button has more functions you know, it's new. It's something new. And like I said, for instance, if you triple tap the home button, I've got mine set to turn on VoiceOver. Well, now it's triple tap the side button, same thing. Okay. Braille Screen Input, because there are no bezels, there's no thick top or bottom bezel. Much, much more comfortable typing experience. I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. I felt one of the problems with the really big bezels on the top and the bottom of the current on the older iPhones, and I personally have a 6 Plus, and I've also got a Google Pixel XL that's basically the same design. I've got big hands, and unfortunately, in the footprint that allows me to, dots 6 and 3 end up appearing off of the screen, because in order for me to be in a comfortable typing position, that's basically what has to happen. I end up on the bezels as opposed to on the screen. Whereas with the iPhone 10, and like I mentioned before, rumors are pointing to 3 new iPhone models with the iPhone 10's design language, which is to say, one of the models is going to be the size of the 6 Plus with a 6.2-inch display. Now, what that means in my book for the BSI, Braille Screen Input, the keyboard would be phenomenal to type on. I'm really looking forward to that. An interesting quirk. Because the iPhone 10's running iOS 11, they've apparently adapted to the new gestures, but hadn't erased one thing. If you turn the iPhone 10 into either of the two landscape modes, it will tell you home button to the right, home button to the left. Well, that applied to all previous iPhones going back actually for 10 years. In 2019, it'll be 10 years since VoiceOver came to the iPhone. But the iPhone 10 doesn't have a home button. So I don't know if they're going to hold on to that, because I guess it could be a reference point, because if you know the home button is to the right, then your power button's up top, and you kind of know where you are from there. Likewise, if your home button's to the left, then your volume controls are on top, and to the right of the volume controls are your mute switch. So they might hold on to that. I don't know. Another interesting thing is that when VoiceOver did find the home indicator, you gave it about 5 seconds, and it told you swipe up till you feel the first vibration to go home. Well, it turns out that the home indicator for some reason is dimmed. I don't know why it's showing as dimmed. I just find that strange. Other than that, other than those gestures and adapting to a new design for the device, because again, you don't have the bezels on the top and the bottom anymore. It's all 100% screen. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, the iPhone 10 has been out since October. Why didn't I get to this sooner? Again, I couldn't find a demonstration unit until now. So for me, this hour with the iPhone 10, for me, was a real eye-opener. I absolutely love the no bezel design. A lot of Android phones are coming into their own with this design. The only problem is on Android, you can't necessarily find a good Braille Screen Input substitute. The Braille keyboards that I've tried on Android are junk, at least in my opinion. The other problem that I have with Android is that things like, for instance, I use Amazing Slowdowner just to play around with the music, get used to lyrics, and other things. Problem is that on Android, the 4 main controls for play, back, forward, etc. are not even labeled properly. Whereas on iPhone, they are. Same with Lift. On Android, with Talkback, Lift is not accessible practically at all. Whereas with the iPhone, it's accessible enough to where you can get around and call for rides and that sort of thing. But no, iPhone 10, totally blown away by it. I'm looking forward to seeing what Apple releases this year. Because for those of you who have not seen my prior video, please go and watch it, but I'll keep it short. Basically, I've run into a situation where there's a possibility my vision could end up going in reverse from what it used to be. Again, more details in the prior video called Preparing for the Possibility of Going Backwards. Suffice it to say, again, my vision could be deteriorating over time. And the keywords are over time. I don't expect this to be overnight, but at the same time, because I hold on to my phones for a long time, I want to be prepared in case something happens. And after having seen the iPhone 10, I am more than excited to see what Apple comes up with for this year. Now, another piece of electronic fruit that came out today, and I did not see this was only just announced, was the Blackberry Key 2. Now, the Blackberry Key 2 is a successor to the Key 1. Industrial design language, we've got a rectangular slab with a 4.3-inch or 4.5-inch screen, and on the bottom, physical QWERTY keyboard. Now, I just mentioned a moment ago that Android's accessibility leaves a lot to be desired. There are certain gestures like down and right or down and left or up and right. I can't even remember what they do, what does what. Okay? Blackberry may have solved that potential problem because they've incorporated a speed key, which is located. If you go down to the keyboard, you feel for the space bar. That space bar is also your fingerprint sensor. You go 1 to the right, that's your symbol key, and 2 to the right is your speed key. And if you're coming in from the left, you'll feel a blank space on the very bottom right of the keyboard. You go 1 in to the left, and that's your speed key. What does the speed key do? It allows for quick switching between apps. And the keyboard in and of itself has the ability to be mapped to anything you want, literally anything you want. And I can definitely see this as being wonderful shortcuts. Like, for instance, I could hold down speed with the letter N to get to notifications, for instance. Also, Blackberry, being that they are a business and enterprise-focused phone, naturally have very robust security. You've got DTEC. You've got Firefox Focus pre-installed. That said, the keyboard could be a welcome addition for people that might be interested in Android from a screen reader perspective, but that doesn't change the fact that in a lot of ways, you compare Talkback to VoiceOver, and there are a lot of differences between them. Interestingly enough, now that's really all I have on the Blackberry Key 2. I've seen a number of the first impressions. A lot of people love this new keyboard. I'm actually very interested in seeing it myself, just to see what it's like. I'm glad that Blackberry is still ticking because there's a lot of people out there that do a lot of writing that I think could really benefit from this phone. And it's really interesting because it reminded me of something. About 10 years ago, I had a device called the Verizon Voyager LG VX10000. And the device was a sideways clamshell, and it opened, and on the front was basically I guess it would be a 2.5 or 3-inch touchscreen, which is tiny by today's standards. But if you open it up, you get a literal full-sized landscape QWERTY keyboard, and I loved that keyboard. I still have the device, in fact. The problem is the one of the hinges has cracked and is now loose. So I can't see myself using that device, not to mention the device is 10 years out of date. That said, I do miss this keyboard. I remember texting on the device all the time, and now that we've gone with an unlimited data plan, I could see myself taking a device like this with a landscape keyboard and doing a lot more with it. I do miss it. I genuinely do miss it. So much so that I was actually thinking about the keyboard cases that they have out. This is a slide-up keyboard case for an iPhone 6 Plus, 7 Plus, 8 Plus. Nothing for the iPhone 10 as of yet. Now, I'm not sure why they haven't done that. Well, actually, yes, I do. Because it's a niche market. I mean, let's look again at the Blackberry Key 2. Not everybody's going to want this thing. In fact, primarily the people that are going to want it are people that miss BlackBerry's security, enterprise robustness, the physical keyboard above all things. So not everybody's going to want to do. In fact, the specs on this, it's got a middle-of-the-road processor and a middle-of-the-road price. Even with the 6 gigs of RAM, I still think that this is appealing to a specific demographic, and that is genuinely a group of people who care a lot about security, a lot about privacy, and really, really want that physical keyboard. Me personally, I've gotten so used to typing on screen keyboards that it would be a real transition for me to go back to a physical keyboard. Not to mention the Braille Screen Input of the iPhones. All I have to do is turn my device sideways, and I get, especially with the iPhone 10, a relatively comfortable Braille typing experience. Now, my problem with the iPhones prior to the 10 were, again, because of the big bezels, my keyboard tended to jump around. I'm hoping that with this new design language that's no longer going to be a problem. But I find the Braille Screen Input to be much easier, especially since I'm really working hard to make sure that I use contracted Braille. It's just really, really nice to have that. And that is something that the Key 2 would provide in the same sense for people who are sighted, a very comfortable, very easy to use typing experience. But unfortunately, because of Android's accessibility shortcomings from a speech perspective, I don't see myself utilizing that. So yeah, that was basically a day of electronic fruit, and like I said, I'm definitely getting the iPhone, whatever the successor to the 10 is. I'm not exactly sure what it'll be, but rumors are, again, they're pointing to the 10 design, so that's what I'm looking forward to. What are your thoughts? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.